Hello everyone, this is your friend Naruto Multiverse 2.0 and we are back in new fanfic. What if a Naruto fan was reborn as Sakura and changed everything Part 3. Good morning, my lovelies, I greeted Naruto and Sasuke. Kakashi had told our team last night to meet him on the Unmei, literally meaning fate, bridge that day. He said we would be taking a break from training, and moving on to something more exciting. Naruto grinned widely upon seeing me, rushing over and throwing his arms around my neck. I hugged him back, equally enthusiastic. I had successfully conditioned Naruto to crave my hugs, not that it was hard, the poor darling was already so starved for attention. Good morning, Sakura-chan. I patted his back as Naruto released me, hopping from one foot to the other in anticipation. Ka-chan actually made our lunches today. She wanted me to give you some dinner, too, Naru-chan. Naruto's eyes lit up like fireworks and he grabbed the two extremely large bento boxes from me. Sasuke gently, in comparison to Naruto, at least took his own lunch with a quiet thank you. Naruto said, I promise I'll stop by this weekend to return the boxes. Much appreciated, I said. Sasuke, in turn, handed me his previous bento box. The team didn't always eat together. For the past couple of weeks Kakashi alternated between a full day's worth of training, or doing a few D-rank missions for half a day. On half days, sometimes the three of us stayed to train, which required much bribing on my part to convince Sasuke to stay, or go off on our own. I had hoped for a chance to train with Hinata again, but the two of us kept missing our chances. She sometimes stopped by my home while I was away to drop off little letters, to assure me she was okay and to encourage me not to steal her 2chan's underwear, and small gifts such as homemade bombs, but otherwise than that we hadn't had much interaction. Naruto and Sasuke had mastered water walking within about 3.5 days of practicing. On the days that we trained together, I encouraged them to spar with me while water walking. Both boys preferred sparring over any other kind of training, and sparring while water walking was one of the best ways to learn how to unconsciously use the technique, which was a vital skill. Kakashi appeared before us, his right arm lifting up as he accurately predicted my tackle hug. I glomped onto Kakashi, throwing enough weight into my takeoff, he stumbled back. I wrapped my legs and arms around him, burying my face in the crook of his neck. Kakashi shifted his posture, readjusting me slightly so he could see the two boys. Good morning my precious minions, Kakashi greeted us. Morning, sensei, Naruto exclaimed. I nuzzled. Good morning, my love. What are we doing today? Sasuke asked. Kakashi rubbed my back, quietly signaling for me to let him go. With much reluctance, I began to slowly release my hold. First I unhooked my legs, then after one last nuzzle, I stopped hugging him. Instead of burying my face in his neck, though, I moved on to keep it firmly pressed into his chest, with my arms tucked behind me, so he could still see my hands. There was a heartbeat of silence, as Kakashi seemed to be deciding what to do with me, before I felt him shrug, then he said, I actually have a surprise for the three of you. I've enlisted you all in the Chunin exams. Yada. Naruto shouted, leaping up and down. You're the best Kaka-sensei. Kakashi scratched at the back of his head with one hand, and with his other hand he presented us with 3 slips of papers. I lifted my head up long enough to grab one of the papers, before I went right on back to admiring the amazingness of Kakashi as up close and personal as I could. You don't have to enter if you don't want to, Kakashi said, ignoring the snorts from Sasuke and myself, but if you do choose to enter, be sure to go to that location on the form at 1400 tomorrow. The exams are difficult, more so than anything you guys have ever faced, so don't feel ashamed if. I'm getting my Ika, I whispered into his chest. You cannot throw yourself into a dangerous situation for the sake of good, Kakashi patiently told me. I wouldn't need to if you bought the collector's edition set for me. Oh, it's the collector's edition now. You have it. Therefore I must have it, too, I explained. How else can I use the pick-up lines that apparently turn you on? Kakashi shook his head. I don't get turned on. Naruto and Sasuke snorted loudly at that, at which Kakashi glared at them. I read it for the story, really. If it's such a good story, why not let Sakura read it? Sasuke questioned, ing his head and folding his arms over his chest, bento still in hand. It'll get her off your back long enough to read the stories. Kakashi stared at him. A few days' worth of peace is not worth a lifetime terror. I just wanna love you, I whined. Your definition of loving me is illegal right now. If loving someone with all their heart is illegal, then throw me in prison forever, I cried out. Kakashi patted my head, giving me his eye smile. I would if I could. They all chuckled as I dropped to my knees from the sheer weight those cruel words forced upon me. While I tried to recover, Naruto asked Kakashi, is that all you wanted us for? Yep, Kakashi answered, making the pea pop. Kakashi-sensei, I asked sweetly, many ideas beginning to swarm inside my head. Yes, Sakura-chan, the Chunin exams, in between Part 1 and Part 2, are there breaks? Technically no, Kakashi said, ing his head. The proctor may allow participants a breather, but legally speaking the exams are continuous between the first two parts. A Cheshire grin stretched across my face, as I realized my plan would indeed work. Naruto turned to me. Why do you ask? You'll see, I purred. I would really rather not, Kakashi said. And he was gone, and I was left crying on the inside at his lack of enthusiasm for my entirely epic plans. Sasuke shook his head, turning to face me. I was slowly getting up, my heart now recovered from the love of my life's utter disinterest and rejection. Sakura, were you able to be successful with those plants I gave you? A sheepish look crossed my face, and I cringed. The Uchiha compound had a massive garden that Sasuke hired Genin to take care of for him. I had a feeling that his father actually maintained the garden previously, from offhanded comments, which really surprised me, but it would explain why Sasuke didn't uproot any in favor of another training ground after the massacre. The garden did not have flowers, or vegetables, but housed a variety of hallucinogenic, poisonous, and dangerous plants. Apparently Sasuke's mother enjoyed coating her weapons in various poisons, and Sasuke's father started the garden in order to grow special poisons to woo her. What a romantic. Uchiha romance aside, the poisonous garden was something I was greatly interested in. It was difficult to find a fighting style to supplement my Iryo training. As much as I wanted to be an in-your-face frontline fighter, as an Iryo nin, I had to be cautious. In all of Tsunade's books, she could not stress the importance of the Iryo nin staying alive and capable of healing her comrades. Besides, Team 7 already had 2 dedicated fighters who were powerhouses. For the sake of team dynamics and being smart, I chose not to be a frontline fighter, but to embrace my support role like the team player I was. That being said, there were not a lot of offensive techniques I could add to my arsenal. I wanted to learn genjutsu, but I needed an active volunteer to practice the skill on, something of which both boys were not up for no matter the bribery offered. Without the ability to practice genjutsu consistently, that was temporarily thrown out. Next thought was ninjutsu, but Kakashi flat out rejected that idea because my chakra capacity was too low, which was steadily being rectified. Then Naruto threw out the offhanded suggestion about poisons. And it was like match made in heaven. Poisons were versatile and were the perfect fit for any aspiring Iryo nin. They were not easily learned, though. The only textbook on creating poisons available to someone of the genin rank held no dangerous, easily useful recipes. The most extreme poison in it was a hallucinogenic that made people intensely intoxicated for a few minutes at most before wearing off. Upon being entered into the bloodstream, it acted instantaneously, but since it wore off so quickly it wasn't something to be relied upon. The book mostly contained various sedatives, and was more focused on identifying poisons and creating antidotes. I was not deterred, though, and I was determined to acquire the skill. Even if the poisons in it were not practical in an obvious sense, learning how to make poisons would be vital if I ever wanted to create my own special brew. So, I needed the equipment and materials to practice making the recipes. Sasuke obliged, providing the plants in exchange for food, writes to order me to be silent for an entire mission, which I forced him to already use all of his chances on our D ranks the past week. Naruto actually had a good chunk of the equipment for his elaborate pranks, apparently, and the rest Ka-chan bought for me. I hedged. Technically yes. I was able to make one batch of the hallucinogenic, and 2 sedatives. Sasuke stared at me, a slow insufferable smirk crawling across his face. Out of how many tries? I fidgeted. 39. He chuckled at my obvious embarrassment, while Naruto consoled me. They must have been really hard. It's chemistry, I mumbled. And it's not like the recipe gives me step-by-step instructions. I had to do a lot of trial and error. And then after the first explosion, Ka-chan made me work outside and the wind kept messing me up. I'm sure, Sasuke condescendingly responded. I stuck out my tongue at him. Sasuke scoffed at me. I'm heading out. I'll see you all tomorrow for the exams. Naruto nodded his head enthusiastically. Oh, yeah, I gotta get ready. See you guys tomorrow. Bye. I mumbled as the duo rushed off in opposite directions. Weren't we supposed to meet Gaara today? Oh, yeah, wait. How come we didn't? How did I change that? For some reason the thought made me uneasy. I wasn't trying to actively change that encounter, yet that's what I ended up doing without even trying. The differences that should have happened were Haku and Zabuza living, and Hinata and I becoming badasses way sooner than our canon counterparts. How did those things factor into preventing Naruto and Sasuke from meeting Gaara? Well, maybe we can still find him. This should be the day they come into Konoha, right? How are we supposed to find him? We're chakra sensitive, right? That's prepubescent of being chakra sensors. Surely we can try to sense Shukaku's Jinchuriki. So we just walk around the village trying to see if we can sense a big ball of malicious chakra. Got any better plans? Nope. I must have wandered around Konoha for an hour before I got an odd tingly sensation in the back of my mind. It reminded me of a swarm of buzzing bees, or a sandstorm, that kind of constant buzzing, grinding noise. The odd sensation perked my interest enough that I began to feel for it. Sensing through chakra was weird. I felt like I was trying to find a dying flashlight on a hot summer day, only able to find it by feeling for its warmth because all my other senses were non-existent. Weird. With a capital W. It was doable, but it made me feel awkward. I continued to head north in Konoha until the buzzing, grinding sensation was overwhelming. My eyes roamed around, widening once I saw the source of the sensation. There they were. For a moment, I was stupefied because I couldn't believe I actually found Gaara and his siblings through sensing them with my chakra. That moment did not last long, however, because I realized that Temari was arguing quietly with Kankuro, gesturing towards a map. Seeing my chance, I hurried over to them. Hi, welcome to Konoha. You guys look lost. Need any help? I offered, my words coming out in a breathless rush. I'm always happy to help cuties. Temari flashed me a brilliant smile. Do you know where the Sunbeam Hotel is? I nodded. Yeah, it's on the opposite side of the village. That made Temari shoot Kankuro a dirty look, at which the puppeteer shrugged. I'd be glad to take you all there. I'm Haruno Sakura. Temari offered, and these are my brothers, Gaara and Kankuro. I took her hands in my own, bowing down and kissing the back of them. It is a great pleasure to meet such a beautiful kunoichi like yourself. She yanked her hands back, eyeing me oddly. Right. Lead the way, Haruno. Just Sakura, I told her, turning my back towards them and beginning to make my way through the streets. Many of the villagers unconsciously gave a wide berth to the Jinchuriki. I wasn't worried, though, because Shukaku was pretty fun person. A bit sadistic, cynical, and twisted, but fun. He was the perfect cross between a tsundere and a yandere. If he was an option in an otome or visual novel, I'd hop all over that fun route. Along the way, I purchased a wicker basket filled with flowers and began to idly twist them into crowns. I pointed out the sights to each of them, giving them an impromptu tour. By the time we reached the hotel, I had finished 5 flower crowns. Here we are, I said with a flourish, bowing to the trio outside the hotel. Tamari smirked at me. Thanks for the tour, Guide-chan. I giggled at her. You're most welcome, pretty lady. I have one more thing for you all. Facing Gaara first, I took out the first crown and gently placed it atop his head. His pale gaze met my own, and I could feel the tension from all 3 of them from my actions. Because I did not hold any ill intent towards Gaara, and he clearly did not view me as a threat, Shukaku Karura's sand defense did not trigger. Nonplussed from the intense stare Gaara gave me, I placed crowns on Tamari and Kankuro. I hope you all have a lovely stay here, I said, not even flinching when I felt Gaara's killing intent focus in on me. Tamari and Kankuro winced at it, unconsciously stepping away from me. You are not scared, Gaara stated. Frowning, I turned back to face him. What kind of future best friend would I be if I was scared of you? Besides, Shukaku is a cutie, too. I love you, Shukaku. Kurama loves you, too, even if he's a narcissistic asshole. He's just a tsundere, you see. The perplexed look on Gaara's face was positively priceless. Silence fell between all of us before Gaara broke it by saying, Okawa-san says you're lying. I placed both hands on my hips. Shukaku, what would Hagoromo say if he knew you were calling your future self-appointed mother a liar? Okawa-san wants you to be quiet. That's what I thought, I retorted. Anyway, I have to head out. It was lovely meeting you all. And to reiterate, Kurama is a tsundere. Gaara tilted his head. You're making Okawa-san laugh. Tell Okawa-san that I call him Kurama of the fluff, too. To his face. And I plan on spanking him at some point in the future. Gaara nodded slowly, the killing intent dying off from focusing on me. Okawa-san likes you. I winked. The first step into winning someone over to coerce them into a harem is to receive the parents' blessing. Not a necessary step, but it makes it easier. What? Tamari whispered, entirely bewildered. Gaara will inevitably join my harem, I explained to them. There is no stopping that. Shukaku-sama will join eventually, as well. What? Kankuro echoed. Ooh, look at that time, I gotta go. Peace on earth and all that, bye-bye. The Chunin exams, Ka-chan repeated, her pretty green eyes lighting up. How wonderful, Sa-chan. I beamed at my completely awesome Ka-chan, pausing in devouring my absolutely delicious meal that night in order to do so. Tu-chan reached over and ruffled my hair affectionately. That's our girl, though. The gesture made me remember another one of Sakura's memories, and I felt a surge of affection from that memory towards Ka-chan and Tu-chan. I had almost all of her childhood memories of Tu-chan and Ka-chan by that point, along with some strong attachment to said people. I sincerely wished I had these parents instead of my first set, but c'est la vie. It might seem a little odd to adopt brand new parents, especially in the way that I had done so, taking over their daughter's body, but at times it genuinely felt like I was Sakura and they were my parents. It was difficult to fight the sensation, and for brief flashes I could even forget about my first life and wholly embrace the current one. I lapped up their praise for that night, enjoying the utter love and warmth they held for us, me. It was a non-existent thing in my first life, so I figured I should cherish all I could get in my second life. When dinner was over, I headed up to my room and prepared for my epic plan to conquer the Chunin exams. The next morning, I took my time to double check that I had everything prepared. I ran through my checklist several times, and only when I was satisfied, did I leave to meet with the team. Naruto and Sasuke were waiting for me a little ways from the academy. Good morning. Good morning, Naruto cheerfully greeted. I placed small snacks in each of their hands. Ka-chan says that we should make sure that we have plenty of energy for the exams. Naruto gleefully began to nibble on his onigiri, while Sasuke ate his at a slower pace. I shifted the weight of my backpack, hands free, as I had already eaten mine on the way there. What's in your backpack? Naruto asked, noticing how bulgy it was. Duplicates, was my only response. Duplicates of. You're a cutie, I told him, patting his cheek before turning and heading inside the academy. I felt both of them follow behind me, taking note that Sasuke's chakra reminded me of carpet shock, and Naruto's felt like a bonfire. Kakashi's chakra reminded me of the flower asphodel. Did I mention how chakra sensing was weird? Because it was. It was really, really weird. We headed up the stairs, and upon rounding the corner we found an abundance of genin standing outside a room. Please, just let us through, Tenten pleaded with the fake genin who were actually Chunin guarding the door. I called out, I wouldn't bother, people from Guy's team. That's not the right room, it's under a genjutsu. All eyes snapped towards me, and I smiled happily. Tenten, Lee, and Neji recognized me almost instantly, because Lee gasped. You're the brave maiden who defended your friend against Hyuga-sama. Yes, I said, ignoring the dubious looks Sasuke and Naruto gave me. Yes, I am. Seriously, though, you guys shouldn't be bothering with that. I thought Kakashi-sensei's rival's team would be smarter than that. Lee cringed, while Tenten looked sheepish and Neji turned his back on us, already walking away. Come on, my team, I said, looking over my shoulder to Sasuke and Naruto, the real room should be upstairs. How do you know that? Naruto loudly whispered to me. I'm chakra sensitive, I answered. And I can count. Naruto nodded sagely at my response, and the three of us continued on our merry little way. Wait, Lee called out as the three of us entered another room. We stopped as one, each turning back to face Team 9. Your name, fair maiden? Haruno Sakura, I said, doing a little curtsy. My teammates are Uzumaki Naruto, I gestured towards Naruto who did a jovial wave, and Uchiha Sasuke otherwise known as Duck Ass. Sasuke shot me a venomous look. Go to hell, you perverted woman. I'll save you a seat, dearie, I responded back cheerfully. You guys are guys kiddos, right? Yeah, Tenten said hesitantly. We didn't mean to listen in on your conversation with Hyuga-sama. It's quite alright, I reassured her. He needed some sense knocked into him, and being the sensible person, Sasuke and Naruto snorted at that. I took it upon myself to do so. It was very brave, Sakura-san, Lee exclaimed. I admire your courage, and your beauty. Please, go out with me. Sasuke was aghast. Are you insane? I smiled at Lee. I've decided to wait until I'm of age to date anyone, but you can join my harem. Tenten paused. You're not dating, but you have a harem. Yes. Lee was heartbroken. Oh, if it makes you feel any better, Naruto hesitantly began, she only has 2 people in her harem so far. 3. I corrected Naruto. Hina-chan joined a couple weeks ago. Naruto nodded. Okay. 3. Then he paused. How come I'm not in the harem? You are welcome to join my harem, sweetie, I told him, patting his shoulder. I view you too much as a son, though, to do anything. You'd be like the designated cuddle buddy in the harem. Naruto perked up. I love cuddles. Count me in. This is irritating. Let's go, Tenten, Neji muttered, giving me a contemptuous glare. But, Lee began, torn, I do not wish to. Tenten grabbed Lee's hand. Come on, Lee. You can talk to Sakura-san after the exams. I waved goodbye as Team 9 left ahead of us, quite happy with the impression I had left up upon them. I had faith that Naruto would still get his chance to therapy no Jutsu Neji, but if by some odd chance that didn't happen, I was fully prepared to lock Hiashi and Neji in the same room together until they were bestest of buddies. Or blackmail them. Either way worked for me. Sasuke watched them leave for a moment before shaking his head. I can already tell these exams are going to be a hassle. I reached over and patted his shoulder, ignoring how he instinctively flinched from my touch. As I conditioned Kakashi, I would condition Sasuke, too. Not as demanding as Kakashi for a multitude of reasons, but I was determined for Sasuke to get used to hugs, and physical contact in general. The lack of affection in his life after the massacre definitely played a huge role in his antisocial, and borderline sociopathic tendencies. Not that I had room to judge sociopaths, or anything, but I figured he would be happier all around if he had love and affection in his life on a regular basis. We moved at a lazy pace, entirely at ease and feeling confident for the exams. When we reached the last bit of stairs before the room with the exams, Kakashi appeared before us. Kaka-sensei, I cried out happily, throwing myself into his arms. He shifted his stance slightly to prepare himself for my hug tackle. For a brief moment I could have sworn he hugged me back, but the sensation lasted no more than a second, so I couldn't be sure. Far too soon for my liking, Kakashi began the process of removing me from him. I'm glad you are all here, Kakashi said, giving us the eye smile. I'm proud of each of you, and I wouldn't have recommended you three to take these exams if I wasn't confident you would ace them. My heart soared at his praise. Praise whore. My hands reached out on their own towards him and Kakashi deftly grabbed them and put them both in one of his hands. With his other hand he reached over and patted each of us on our head. I pouted at him, my bottom lip sticking out. You always end our hugs so quickly. You can hug me, Sakura-chan, Naruto happily offered. I beamed at him, turning partially towards him, as Kakashi still had a firm grip on my hands, and I took the time to wonder if his hands were simply that big, or if my hands were that small. As the designated cuddle buddy, I'm always ready to give out hugs. A mischievous smile crawled its way across my face. Okay. Hey, when you see Hina-chan next, would you mind hugging her for me? I know she needs some hugs, too. Naruto nodded. Yeah, sure thing. You're going to give her a heart attack, Sasuke deadpanned. My eyebrows rose. You know about her. It was painfully hard not notice a girl who literally fainted in class any time Naruto was near her, Sasuke snarked. So sassy, I said with a coy smile. Do you need a hug, too, little boy? Are you jealous? Touch me and die, Sasuke crankily informed me. Oh, he so needs a hug. With a woeful sigh, I returned my attention to Kakashi, giving him the most pleading look I could muster. He let out a long sigh, and released his hold on me, lifting up one arm. With a delightful squeal I hugged him again, savoring how he patted my back gently. Deciding not to push him for his wondrous gift, I then turned around and latched onto Naruto to satisfy my intense desire to hug people. Naruto squeezed me tightly, being the all-around ball of sunshine and love he was. The two of us are going to fill this world with so much love no one will ever be angsty again. As long as a member of the Uchiha are still alive, that's not going to happen. Shish. Yes it will. Everyone knows the greatest power of all is love and friendship. No, that would be a neutron star about to go out in style. Deidara would probably give his life for a chance to see that. Single quote. Kakashi continued to eye-smile at us. Well, I'll be watching, minions. Try not to embarrass me. Sasuke and Naruto pointedly looked towards me, and I whistled innocently. Try not to you ally harass the other genin, Kakashi told me. I don't know, Man, I confessed. The goggle gods told me to go on a hugging spree before the second task. Of course they did, Sasuke sardonically said. Why wouldn't they do anything but enable your delusional fantasies? My fantasies will not remain delusional for much longer, I vowed. My harem will come to life, and as soon as I hit what passes for adulthood in this world, I will indulge in every fantasy my body can handle with said harem. You are a depraved person, Sasuke informed me. I didn't say they would be UAL fantasies, I pointed out. For all you know, I was referring to a 72-hour Uno marathon, or who can keep backflipping the longest before getting sick. You're the one that jumped to things of that nature. He flushed. You said adulthood. My legs would have finished growing by the time I reach adulthood, therefore I have a greater chance of winning the backflipping contest, I explained. Geez, get your mind out of the gutter. Yeah, Sasuke, don't be such a perverted bastard, Naruto agreed with me, grinning wickedly. Before the Uchiha could begin throttling either of us, Kakashi cleared his throat. Glad to see your team dynamics are strong as ever. Don't maim each other before the third part, bye. And he was gone. I missed him already. Naruto clapped his right fist into his left open palm. Alright, let's kick some ass and take some names. May the goggle gods watch over this, I solemnly prayed. It seemed like Sasuke was repressing the urge to sigh at us, because his face screwed up and his shoulders twitched, before decided to open the door for us. The three of us stepped inside the exam room, and immediately I was wrapped into a tight hug. I let out a happy giggle as I hugged Hinata back, pulling back long enough to nuzzle my nose against hers. She giggled as I did so, a light blush covering her face. Sakura-chan, I have missed you. And I have missed you, my princess, I informed her, looking her up and down. Her jacket was nowhere to be found. Instead, the heiress wore a lilac t-shirt with a little pale blue flower over her left. Her arms were bare, displaying her well-earned muscles. I noticed that she wore matching wristbands as me, except while mine were pink, hers were a pale blue with a lilac sakura flower in the center, with matching shinobi gloves. She kept her standard pants and shoes. However, I noticed that she also chose to grow her hair out a bit more. You look positively adorable, I told her, eliciting another blush from the girl. She's not the only one looking adorable today, Ino interjected, wrapping an arm around my waist. Hinata and I both welcomed the blonde Spitfire into our hug, causing Ino to blush and smile happily, which made Hinata and I giggle. We are all adorable today, I declared, relishing the group hug and the feeling of warmth in our little circle. Naruto gave a whine. Hey now, as the designated cuddle buddy of the harem, why am I not included? Ino and I rolled our eyes, but lifted our arms to allow Naruto to join. Hinata let out a quiet gasp when the hero tackled into us, laughing happily to be a part of the group hug. Poor Hinata was struggling not to faint. Her face was redder than Madara's armor, and she was borderline hyperventilating. Thankfully for her, Kiba's next crude comment triggered Ino and Naruto into round on him and focus their annoyance on him. Hinata seized the moment, and promptly hid behind me, burying her face in her hands. I patted her back consolingly, watching as Kiba and Naruto escalated their pissing contest. Our little group continued to watch our most boisterous members bicker until I noticed a certain someone heading our way. Kabuto approached, a smile on his face, and before he opened his mouth, I threw my shoe at him. Get outta here, you piece of shit. Don't even open your mouth. Leave before the next thing I do is take a spoon, gouge out your eyes, and spoon feed them to you. Then choke you with said spoon. My previous classmates gaped at me, while I glared hatefully at the lying liar who lies. Kabuto looked positively shell-shocked. You Sakura-chan? Hinata inquired hesitantly, entirely bewildered. I did not give her my attention, yet, entirely focused on channeling every bit of my desire to kill the pos that was in front of me. Kabuto took a step back, playing the perfect role of being intimidated. I guess I'll leave. Only once the threat was gone, I relaxed and beamed at all my friends. Don't worry about it, guys. But that guy is the worst kind of scum you will ever meet. I will definitely do some not nice things to him one day. Sasuke's eyes lit up with understanding. Wait, is that? Naruto looked between us for a moment, before he, too, realized what Sasuke was asking. Sakura-chan. Was that? Yes, I confirmed. His name is Kabuto, and what he has done is unforgivable. That guy? Kiba asked, incredulous. What did he do? Ino's brow furrowed. I can't say, yet, I answered. But you guys will know within the month. And you all may very well come to hate him in the coming years. Shikamaru spoke up for the first time since we entered the room. If he's that bad, why is he still a Konoha genin? I can't tell you that. The goggle gods warned me about telling anyone about the things he has done, without solid proof. It's very dangerous. The Shikamaru began, but Naruto gave him a look, and the Nara air fell quiet. Then there was a big puff of smoke, and Ibiki appeared in all his bad Asura. All too happily, I pushed out the yucky thoughts of Kabuto, focused entirely on enacting the next part of my epic plan. As soon as I got my test, I flipped it over and began to draw a detailed image of Kakashi and me getting married, with the Akatsuki replacing the clouds with flowers, and they each wore masks all around us. Hidan was the officiant, and Hinata acting as my maid of honor. I drew Tobi as Kakashi's best man, with Naruto and Sasuke as groomsmen along with Guy. The pack of cuties were also dressed as groomsmen with cute little bows, and Pakun acting as the ring bearer. All the Konoha ladies with Tamari and Konan were dolled up, acting as my bridesmaids. It was an outdoor wedding, with lots of trees, clouds, and typical wedding stuff. I finished the picture and shaded it halfway through the test, and then I flipped it over and began to draw each Akatsuki duo in each box. Starting at the top left was Konan and Nagato enjoying some tea, with the ghost of Yahiko blowing kisses to Konan. Top right was Itachi and Kisame, Itachi knitting while Kisame ate some sushi. Below them was the zombie duo, Kakuzu holding Hidan's head and smirking, while Hidan was throwing out curses. Beside them was Deidara and Sasori competing over if art was everlasting or brief. Below them was Tobi being a cutie with Mia. To the box next to Tobi was Obito and now proudly holding up goggles to the goggle gods, then below them was Mawako, Naruto, and Kurama posing for a photo. Finally beside Mawako, Naruto and Kurama, was Madara eating cakes with Hashirama. In the box that was meant for the 10th question, I wrote, "The goggle gods blessed me with the knowledge that your test is bullshit. Praise be to the goggle gods, you heathen." I decided to finally pay attention to my teammates, noticing the Sasuke had completed his test, and Naruto was giving Hinata a look of sheer awe. That made me a bit curious. Upon further inspection, it seemed that Hinata had literally swapped their test sheets after finishing her own. She was nearly done with Naruto's. The sheer size of the balls she had grown over the past month left me breathless. Love and encouragement did wonders. I never understood why people don't live by that. If everyone cared, so many problems would be fixed. If everyone loved, nothing else would get done. We'd all become lazy, having no reason to aspire for more. That is so not true. Get your cynicism out of my optimism. Get your optimism a checkup with reality. It really needs it. I promptly began to ignore my Debbie Downer inner. The first part ended without any big scene, or fuss. Anko arrived, as in person as she was in the anime, and instructed us to follow her. I was in the lead following her, admiring her shapely form. The other genin seemed content in giving her birth. Your butt is the second best butt I have ever had the pleasure of seeing. That made the poison mistress stop, irritated. Second best. Kakashi sensei has the best butt, I explained to her. She paused in her walking, then shook her head. Even if it's him, my ass should be way better. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, I said to her, ignoring how Naruto was tugging on my sleeve and gesturing wildly for me to be quiet. Almost the entire group of genin that was following behind Anko was listening to our conversation. Your butt is very attractive, and you have this whole vibe going for you. Easily the East Kunoichi I have personally seen, but Kakashi Sensei's butt is like. Words failed me and I gestured with my hands. Anko peered at me. I get where you're coming from, but I personally don't see it. I gasped. How could you not? Have you seen his butt? Yes, Anko answered. Every kunoichi has, and a good chunk of shinobi I bet. There were some scandalized gasps and chokes from the participating genin. Anko lightly patted her bum. But he has nothing on his. I'm as smooth as a baby's ass. I have it on good authority that he is, too, I exclaimed. That got another pause, and a leer from Anko. Really? Really? I confidently told her. How do you know? Who told you? I hesitated, thinking that perhaps Kakashi wouldn't want me to inform Anko that I had managed to grab his booty on more than one occasion. I'm not allowed to say. Anko bent over and squinted at me. She stared at me for several seconds, before her eyes lit up and she chortled. Ha, looks like we have ourselves another Jiraiya-sama. I gasped. You know, I can't believe you got the drop on Hataki, Anko commented, placing a hand on my shoulder and making me walk with her as she guided the rest of the genin once more. So is it really that good? It's why I say it's the best. You're biased. You obviously have the hots for your teacher. Not able to deny that with a straight face, I merely smiled in response. That seemed to amuse the lady even more so, because she snickered, patting me on the back. Tell you what, you pass this part, and I'll let you buy me dango. I bowed before her. It would be my honor, oh sweet spirit of sheer innocence. If I didn't know any better, I could have sworn I heard groans of disgust from behind me. Clearly, must have been my imagination. The rest of the trip to the forest went by pretty quick, with Anko and I shamelessly flirting back and forth. When we had arrived, she gave her dramatic speech about the rules, and blah, blah, blah. Then the waivers were handed out. It was time for the next step in my epic plan. Hug time, I shouted out after signing my waiver. I handed it over to Naruto before throwing my arms around him. Since we have another 30 minutes, I'm going to hug everyone. Naruto patted my back. Everyone. I pulled away from him, already running towards a complete stranger from Kumogakure who had a nice butt. Everyone. I returned to my team a few minutes before we had to enter the forest. Each group was assigned a different area and an assistant lead as to different gates. When it was time for the second part to begin, the door to the Forest of Death unlocked, and the assistant stepped back with a smirk. We stepped inside the Forest of Death. Sasuke looked over at us. We need a plan. I pulled off my backpack and dropped it on the ground. I got this, guys. They both turned to look at my backpack, and when I unzipped it, I presented it to be filled with earth and heaven scrolls. They stared at it. What? Sasuke deadpanned. Kakashi Sensei said the exams didn't end between part 1 and part 2. I began to explain, so technically as soon as we knew the parameters of part 2, we could act. Anko-sama did not specify that we had to take the scrolls while inside the forest. She only stated that we had to present one heaven and one earth scroll at the tower by the end of 5 days. Naruto was bewildered. So how did you get all those scrolls, Sakura-chan? Remember how I went on my hugging spree earlier? I asked. Well, while I was hugging people, I pricked them with my hallucinogenic poison, the one that makes them super drunk, and then I nicked their scrolls while they were feeling hazy. Sasuke's brow furrowed. When the poison wore off, though, wouldn't they realize they had a missing scroll? I left a duplicate in its place. How did you know to make duplicates? The goggle gods, I answered, zipping my backpack up and slinging it back over my shoulders. Anyway, that's the abridged version. We have our scrolls, so let's head to the tower, yeah. Naruto grinned brightly at me. That's so amazing, Sakura-chan. You're always so prepared. Yes, I drawled out slowly. Obviously there was a bit more to the story. I didn't go anywhere near teams I knew were dangerous, or I felt had chakra levels higher than regular genin. Several of the teams participating were overly arrogant and lowered their guards around me, which was another criteria for me to target them, misbelieving I was only a little girl. Joke's on them, though. I'm a crazy woman, I keep everyone on their toes. That you do. Sasuke shifted, still giving me a disbelieving look. Quote. Okay, let's head to the center tower, then. I saluted. Brilliant plan, good sir. Last one, there has to be everyone else's slave. Naruto let out a scandalized gasp, while Sasuke grimaced. No. Party pooper. I pouted, already taking off into the trees. It would be pretty swell if our team managed to beat the others to the tower. We could break a whole new record, you know. I bet Kakashi would feel super proud of us and praise me bunches if we did that. That thought made my heart skip a happy beat. My feet landed with soft thuds as I leapt from branch to branch, Naruto and Sasuke flanking me. Sasuke's eyes had shifted into a Sharingan, and he seemed to be constantly scanning our surroundings. Naruto had an inordinately happy smile on his face, looking like the most pleased pickle in existence. I felt the urge to ruffle his hair every time I looked over and saw that smile. We moved quickly, not pausing when we heard the first screams echo throughout the forest. Naruto and Sasuke, never ones to turn down a competition, did their best to race to the tower. Even without the penalty to the loser, all of us were motivated to be the first team to reach the tower. If everything had gone according to plan, we would never even have to see Orochimaru. Unfortunately, things did not go according to plan. But, hey, that's what backup plans were for. So when that big gust came out of nowhere and blew us all away, in the same direction, though, because we were tightly packed together in our race, I wasn't too surprised. And when Orochimaru walked towards us, disguise firmly in place, with a smile on his face, I knew it was time for the backup epic plan. The killing intent flooded the area, freezing my teammates for a brief moment, and stunning me for a split second before excitement and adrenaline overrode me. The widest smile possible stretched across my cheeks in anticipation for one of the best damn villains in written history, in my totally biased opinion, approached us. The goggle gods warned me of your impending arrival, I told Orochimaru, as I pulled out a small scroll from my backpack. The creepy, in a cool way, Snake Man chortled. Did they now? Do you know who I am, then? I nodded my head. Of course, Orochimaru-sama. I have your complete collection of anatomy guides in my room. I would have brought them to get your autograph, but I was worried they would get damaged in the forest. Orochimaru laughed once more, his killing intent idly dying off. Sasuke and Naruto slowly moved to flank either side of me, both eyeing Orochimaru cautiously. I wouldn't have thought one of Konoha's little seedlings would be allowed to want my autograph. They just don't understand you, I reassured him. I can't say I entirely do, too, but I can definitely say that I understand enough not to hate you and that I can appreciate what you have done. Without yours and Tsunade-sama's experiments, Konoha wouldn't be so advanced in medical care as it is now. But, of course, Orochimaru agreed with me. What on earth is a rational child like yourself still doing in this village? Rational. Sasuke repeated, incredulous. I'm in love with Kakashi-sensei, I explained. I couldn't bear to just leave him. Otherwise I would have gone rogue and hunted down Kisame-sama and begged his blessing to hang out with him. Hoshigaki-san is an interesting fellow, Orochimaru commented pleasantly, as if remarking on the weather. I certainly think so, I sighed happily, thinking about my idol. Returning to the point on hand, I unsealed the scroll. I don't want to die, and I don't think my teammates want to die either. Orochimaru said, most don't. Then 15 flares shot up and out of the scroll and into the sky, illuminating our entire vision in bright red and purple. Flares were used to signal for immediate help, and all genin teams were required to carry red flares on every mission. Purple flares were one of 5 distinctive flares to alert everyone in the vicinity to the level of danger. Green for B rank, yellow for A rank, pink for S, purple for SS, or cage level, and white was used for when a team was significantly outnumbered. I wasn't sure if Anko and the Anbu were already searching for Orochimaru, but Orochimaru didn't know if they were looking for him yet, either. So now the incredibly dangerous missing Nin was left with a bit of a dilemma. He clearly didn't want to confront an entire squad of Anbu, which he did not know if they were coming or not, but being the cautious genius he was, he would assume they were, but he very much wanted to give Sasuke a curse mark. Orochimaru frowned. That's no fun. I don't want to die, yet, I told him. I am sorry. If I knew for sure you wouldn't kill us, I wouldn't have shot up the flares. I suppose I can't fault you for that, Orochimaru allowed, causing me to beam at him, but really. You cut my time significantly. Next time we meet up, I'll buy you lunch as an apology, I offered. Orochimaru tilted his head at that, and then he was a blur in the next moment. I didn't feel any killing intent coming from him, so it greatly surprised me when the next instant I saw him, he was digging his knee up into my diaphragm and sending me hurtling through the trees before I landed with a very dizzying thud. Pain shot throughout my entire backside, and I knew that he had successfully broken several bones with one kick. Blood pooled into my mouth, as I struggled to stay awake. Each breath burned, and I could not take in enough oxygen to breathe properly. He had induced traumatic pneumothorax when the ribs broke inwards and punctured my left lung. As the edges of my vision blackened, I knew I had to work quickly before I suffocated, or passed out. Thankfully, adrenaline worked wonders on dulling the pain and giving me a semi-clear mind to focus on what to do in order to survive. I heard shouts, and I felt more than I saw, the battle commence around me. Praise to the goggle gods that my backpack was still on me, so I was able to take out my emergency medical supplies. With extremely shaky hands, I pulled out the emergency syringe and jabbed it into my chest, reinflating my lung. It caused enough immediate relief that I took a staggering breath and worked to remove my ribs from my lung and heal the tissue. I wouldn't be able to repair the broken bones properly in the current environment, but I could deal with that pain. The holes were small, enough so that they would have been able to heal on their own given enough time, and my body all too happily regrew under my shozen. I calcified my ribs so they would not break off, but I'll have to re-break my ribs to set them properly, I thought with a grimace. Once the immediate threat to my life was taken care of, I took stock of the rest of my injuries. My right shoulder was dislocated, holy hell that hurts, and either my hip was out of place or fractured, and my back felt like it was going to be a big angry bruise for a month. None of which were life-threatening, so I ignored them in favor of finding my teammates. I could not have been distracted for more than a minute, and already Naruto and Sasuke were unconscious and Orochimaru was gone. I tried to stand back up, but my hip protested so much that I had to pop it back into place myself before doing anything else. I bit hard on my bottom lip to keep from crying out as I heard the pop from twisting my hip back into place. I took a few moments to recollect myself before forcing myself to stand up and hobble over to Naruto. I sent a jolt of chakra into his system, in hopes of awaking him, and I was pleasantly surprised when he gave a low groan. The hero opened his eyes, and blearily looked up at me. Sakura-chan. Hello. Do me a favor. He sat up, grimacing. Yeah, what's up? Pop my shoulder back into place. Naruto nodded his head, then hesitated. I don't know how to do that. It's okay, I'll G-guide you, I reassured him. I leaned back on my butt, before sinking down onto the ground to lay flat on my back. Grab my right elbow with your right hand, and my right wrist with your left hand. Naruto tentatively did so, his clear blue eyes bright with obvious worry. Good. Now slow and steady, pull my arm away from my body. As he did so, I had to turn my head away and bit down hard on my lip and tongue. It took a couple of tries, but he was eventually able to pop it back into place. With that being settled, I did a quick diagnostic of Naruto, damn grateful Kurama of the fluff was already healing him before I headed over to Sasuke. Disappointment flared through me before I pushed it aside. Sasuke had the curse mark. Despite heading straight towards the tower, and only being a few hours away, Max, Orochimaru still found us. He still headed straight towards us. Short of spilling everything to the Hokage and taking a trip to T&I, was there anything else I could have done to prevent that? I don't think so. Even then, that's not a guarantee Orochimaru won't find some other to get to Sasuke. We did the best we could under the circumstances, and with the criteria of, not wanting to die, yet. It was still frustrating. But frustration got me nowhere, and it wasn't a pleasant feeling, so away that went. Naruto squatted down on the opposite side of me, his brow furrowed as he looked at Sasuke. What do we do? It's unsafe to treat him out here, I said slowly. We're only a few hours away from the tower, so let's rush there. He should be okay until we get there. Then what? I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it. Naruto smiled brightly. Okay. I trust you, Sakura-chan. Unease settled in my stomach at his words for some reason. Naruto grabbed Sasuke's right arm and slung it over his shoulder. I did the same with Sasuke's left arm, and the two of us ran as fast as we could to the tower. As soon as we entered the tower, I ripped off my backpack and pulled out a heaven scroll and an earth scroll. Quickly, I unrolled both and placed them over one another. Within seconds, there was a puff of smoke and it was not Iruka who appeared in the smoke, but rather a young woman whose name I did not know. She wore her Chunin attire well, with rainbow-dyed hair swept up into a bun in the back. She looked over each of us. Team 7. I nodded for us, hearing Naruto grunt as he shifted his hold over our unconscious teammate. She smirked at us. Congrats on being the first to the tower. Your buddy gonna make it. We ran into Orochimaru in the forest, I said, watching closely as her face paled and her eyes widened. He left a gift for our teammate, and we're going to require a sealing team for him. She shifted uneasily at my words. It would be a violation of the rules if teams were granted outside medical assistance until the second part is complete. Tell our sensei, then, so he can prepare the sealing immediately afterwards. Right, the Chunin agreed. Well, you all have free reign of the tower until the 5 days are up. Kitchen is on the second floor, and dorms are floors 3 through 7. Once more, I nodded my head at that. The Chunin disappeared in a puff of smoke, and I helped Naruto carry Sasuke upstairs. We dumped our feverish teammate onto a bed, and then it was time to work. See this mark here? I asked Naruto, pointing towards the curse mark. Naruto pulled up a chair to sit beside me while I worked on Sasuke. He nodded his head. It's some kind of seal. According to my diagnosis and what I can tell from Shozen, it's forcing itself into Sasuke's chakra network. Naruto paled. That's bad, right? Yes, I agreed quietly. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about it right now. Neither of us are Fuinjutsu experts, and my medical expertise can only go so far. What we can do is help flush out the toxic chakra it's emitting into his system, and keep his fever down. Is there something I can do? Naruto asked me. Yes. Keep giving him chakra pills, and anti-inflammatory medication. We'll change his cooling pack every hour, too. If it gets too bad, we'll have to give him an ice bath. He's going to be okay, though, right? I hesitated. He's going to have a tough time, but I believe he'll be okay in the end. Naruto. The curse mark is affecting his nervous system, as well. Well, you know how you sometimes go berserk when you use Kurama's chakra. The ball of sunshine ed his head at me. What? The QB. You know, what kind of self-appointed mother would I be, if I didn't know? I retorted. But you understand what I'm talking about, yeah. At his nod, I continued, well, Sasuke's going to have go through something similar. If too much of that thing's chakra is released into his system at once, it'll cause him to go a bit crazy. It'll be up to us to stop him, and calm him down. It's not entirely his fault, though, so don't take anything he says or does personal when he's like that. Naruto punched his left palm, a grin on his face. I can do that. If that's all there is to worry about, then everything really is going to be okay. I couldn't resist smiling at that. Yes. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to re-break some bones and do a bit of damage control for myself. If you hear me scream, please pretend you heard nothing. He grimaced. Yeah, okay. Unfortunately, some of my injuries required an extra set of hands. I had to have Naruto wrap the bandages around my chest and back. He was extremely uncomfortable with it, but understood the necessity and acted like a complete gentleman, because I couldn't friggin' move after re-breaking a couple of ribs. I had a whole bunch of scratches and gashes and all sorts of fun shit covering my back, so I had to dress it somehow until I could finagle a way to heal my back. A shoulder after being dislocated recently did not want to move much. Sasuke floated in and out of consciousness. The first time he woke up semi-coherent, Naruto and I reassured him that he was in a safe place and didn't have to fight. That seemed to trigger his body to shut down and focus entirely on recuperating from Orochimaru's brief encounter. He didn't become coherent until it was time for the preliminary exams. Gaara's team had arrived a couple hours after our team. Apparently I had taken out enough of the competition that it took a couple of tries to find a team that didn't have a duplicate. Oopsie. Hinata's team came later that night. I greeted them with hugs. Hinata figured out the duplicates were because of me. I had left tiny little flowers in the corner of the duplicates, and she watched me work my magic before entering the forest, and explained it to her teammates. Kiba was quite put off with me because it took them multiple tries to find a team that didn't have a duplicate, while Shino praised me on my cunning. Hinata just smiled at me, and pinched my cheek, citing, if I didn't like you so much, I might have been annoyed. I giggled at that and responded with, lies. You're too full of goodness and love to be annoyed with anyone. She shook her head in response. Team 8 hung around our room, Hinata happily assisting to help care for Sasuke. Kiba and Naruto enjoyed bantering with one another, and the boisterous genin listened to each other's stories of what their teams had been up to for the past couple of months since academy days. I had Hinata redress my wounds over the next couple of days until I could move my shoulder enough to use Shozen on my back. Some of the injuries would leave behind barely visible scars. It would make for a hell of a cool story. Oh, how did you get that scar? Someone would ask. I got in a fight with Orochi friggin' Maru. And lived. Holy Arceus, that is badass. I know. Quite the story, indeed. Team 9 showed up after the third day into the exam, well into the night, followed shortly by Otogaku's team. On the fourth day, looking extremely worse for wear, Team 10 arrived. On the same day, I also kidnapped Hinata to help BY trap a certain room I found. With the reunion of all the rookies, all of us stayed close. Guy's team seemed to be held off in semi-isolation, likely demanded by Neji, and to a lesser extent Tenten. I healed up what injuries I could, and Hinata stitched the injuries I could not. The rest of our time passed by in a very relaxed state. The fifth day all of us stayed in our rooms and rested in preparation for the next step of the exam. Then came 2 in the afternoon, and each team received a message to meet in the very same room I had, by complete coincidence, I'm sure, why trapped. Things were about to get exciting again. Checking in with Kakashi. Third person POV. Kakashi joined the rest of the Konoha instructors in the surveillance room to monitor the first part of the exams. His longtime friend, and self-appointed rival, Guy greeted him with a cheerful wave and a blinding smile. My friend, I was not aware your team would be a part of the exams. It was made apparent to me early on that they would want to participate, Kakashi answered, shoving his hands in his pockets. Hokage-sama was also interested in one of my minions becoming a chunin. Asuma snorted. Let me guess, Naruto. No, Kakashi responded quietly, thinking back to the evil glint in Hiruzen's eyes at the thought of a certain Pinkett having unlimited access to the Ika Ika series. The evil man had chortled, merrily smiling as he said with an all-too-straight face, she would be good for you, Kakashi-kun. She seems very fun. She's 12. For now, Hiruzen agreed, still smiling evilly. There was no way he actually thought that Kakashi would even consider being with someone so young, but the man openly enjoyed the fact that the aspiring medic could make her sensei squirm. Hiruzen was a firm believer in shinobi expressing their emotions, when not on missions, of course, and not turning into mindless tools, and the fact that she brought out honest reactions and feelings from the emotionally repressed retired Anbu made Hiruzen hopeful for his subordinate. Kurenai frowned at Kakashi's response. He favors the Uchiha, then. Kakashi mutely shook his head. Guy chuckled. I am not surprised. Kakashi's fair maiden is most surprising. She brims with youthful enthusiasm. She is not my fair maiden, Kakashi corrected. She is my minion. An evil, perverted minion. Hinata-chan thinks highly of Sakura-chan, Kurenai said slowly. Surely, you must be exaggerating. Kakashi gave her a look as if patronizing a child. Kurenai flushed, looking away in a huff. You were never good with Kunoichi. You probably don't know how to handle her, the poor girl. I'm the victim here, Kakashi protested. She's worse than Jiraiya. No way, Asuma immediately denied. No one is worse than him. She is, Kakashi insisted. Asuma turned towards the surveillance screen, squinting at the group of genin. That girl, right there. The one that's hugging her friends. She's a pervert. Kakashi nodded firmly. The only reason she wants to be a chunin is to purchase Ika Ika. I don't believe that, Kurenai declared. Kakashi gave her another look, causing the kunoichi to glare balefully at him. The instructors watched the footage for another moment, before another genin approached the group. Sakura immediately took off her right shoe and threw it at him, her face contorting into a look Kakashi had honestly never seen on his minion before. The look of sheer hatred on her face was unsettling. He had only ever seen smiles, and the occasional wince from his casual rejections. The other genin seemed equally surprised by the venomous looks, and likely words, she threw towards the silver-haired genin. Only until the genin had left, did she flip a switch and turn back into cheerful young girl. Who was that? Kurenai asked, looking over at Kakashi. Kakashi didn't have an answer. But he would soon enough. Yo, Kakashi greeted casually. His team had entered the forest of death yesterday, so he would not be seeing them for another few days. He planned on spending that time relaxing with light training thrown in, but Ibiki had requested to meet with him. The scarred interrogator took a seat beside Kakashi at the bar they sat at, a single paper in hand. He slammed said paper on the counter, a scowl on his face. Who the hell are the goggle gods? Kakashi blinked at that, then looked down. He recognized Sakura's drawings, although he did not recognize who she drew, except Obito. How did she know Obito? Surely, no one would tell her about that tidbit of information about him. People knew better than to talk about Kakashi's past, and her curly handwriting. He read the message at the bottom of the paper, and resisted the urge to snort and bury his face in his hands. He settled for shaking his head. I don't know. How did she know about my exam? I literally came up with it that morning, Ibiki demanded. The goggle gods is the term Sakura uses to explain away anything she figures out, Kakashi explained. She has a very high natural intuition. She likely saw through your exam, then explained it away through her gods. Ibiki's eyes narrowed. Really? That is the most likely scenario, Kakashi allowed. I don't have any obvious proof, but I can confirm she doesn't have any hidden Kekai Genkai, nor do these goggle gods actually exist. Ibiki snorted. He supposed that it did make sense. No one could keep things hidden from the Hatake Kakashi, so if there was something odd about Sakura, the famed Jonin would have figured it out by now. That being said, Ibiki still had a gut feeling that there was something a bit more to the story. Without definitive proof, though, Ibiki wouldn't push the retired Anbu. Well, not about that, anyway. With a smirk, Ibiki flipped over the paper. Care to share, Hatake? Kakashi stared at Sakura's picture of their wedding for a solid minute, before he took a long swig of his sake, and buried his face in his arms. You have 10 seconds to leave, and take that atrocity with you, before I break that damn jaw of yours. Ibiki smirked, obliging the embarrassed man. The wedding picture, and the motivation to write Kakashi's POV, was inspired by Sarah Garcia Donner, DeviantArt, triplet fanart of Kakashi and Sakura. Links on profile, or you can go to their profile. Big thank you to Nixig DeviantArt, for making my whole damn week and helping my muse out with her, his fanart of Haku giving Sakura a smooch. Links also on profile, or go to their profile. Fun fact. Neutron stars are the stars that turn into a black hole. Our sun would have to become a neutron star before it turned into a black hole. OC. Sakura glosses over uncomfortable facts like a cheetah chasing after the world's most delicious meat. So any narrative from her perspective that deals with uncomfortable things will be reflecting that. I want to do a Naruto movie, but IDK which one to do. Help. We made our way to the arena as a team, bumping into our former classmates along the way and exchanging pleasant greetings. When we arrived in the arena, my eyes zoomed around to find Kakashi. I was disappointed that I couldn't find him, though. Then a flash of red caught my attention, just as Hiruzen began his speech. My eyes zoomed in on a team I did not expect to see. When they hadn't shown up the first couple of days, I feared they had lost both scrolls. One had managed to sneak onto their person while I hugged them. Lo and behold, though, looking extremely battered was one Kusagaker Genin team with a shy Karen who fidgeted nervously. She must have sensed my gaze on her, because she turned around and met my stare. Her eyes lit up with recognition and a smile bloomed across her face. I instantly smiled back at her, as warmly as I could, hoping she would understand that I wanted to be her friend. When the Hokage's speech was done, and Hayate motioned for each of us to head up on the balcony before he would announce the first matchup, I reached across the room and grabbed Karen's hand. Both her teammates turned to glare suspiciously at me, before they recognized me. One of her male teammates, whose name was entirely unimportant, said, "Hey. You're the one that placed those scrolls on us." I smiled at Karen, ignoring the male that would never make the cut to be a part of my harem. "You should come and join our team, cutie." She blushed. Don't listen to her, Karen, the other teammate said. "We should stay together. Teams are over by this point. No need for teams to stay together unless they want to," I told the boys. "So Karen-chan can come hang out with me and my friends. Unless you'd rather stay with these two boys." She hesitated, fidgeting under her teammates' glares before she shook her head. I shot them both triumphant smirks before I tugged on her hand. Hinata and Naruto were waiting for me at the base of the stairs, both smiling warmly at Karen and myself. "I'm Hyuga Hinata." Hinata introduced herself to the rosy-haired girl. "You Uzumaki Karen," Karen replied. Naruto's eyes widened. "What? Did you say Uzumaki?" Even Hinata was surprised. Are you Naruto-kun's cousin? Karen tilted her head at that, her brow furrowed. Who? Talk while we walk. Dearies, they want to start the matches, I said, guiding everyone up the stairs. Sasuke looked over at us, his hands stuffed in his pocket as he waited for us to join him. Kiba and Shino gravitated towards our group, and soon Ino's team followed. Once everyone had arrived, I introduced Karen once more. Everyone, this is Uzumaki Karen from Kusagaku. The idiot has a cousin. Sasuke asked. I'm Uzumaki Naruto, Naruto said quickly to the growing more confused Karen. Are we cousins? We might be, Karen said slowly. Do you not know about our clan? I have a clan, Naruto exclaimed, excitement lighting up his eyes. The Uzumaki clan was one of the most powerful clans during the Warring Clans period, I explained to the hero. They were one of the founding clans that helped create this village. Their Haim, Mito-sama, married Hashirama, the very first Hokage Konoha ever had. Unfortunately, during the end of the Second Great War, they were destroyed. Karen nodded at my explanation. We had to scatter all over the lands. My family went to Kusagaku. I'm the last member, though. Naruto's face had fallen from our explanation. Oh, then it brightened. So we are cousins. Very likely, Karen tentatively agreed. So you really don't know anything about our clan? Naruto shook his head. The Uzumaki clan was renowned for their fuinjutsu, Shikamaru slowly said. As such, most of their work is classified for Chunin and above, unless given special permission by a Jonin. Before we could continue our conversation, Hiruzen cleared his throat. The bye will be given to Uzumaki Karen. Our eyes drifted up to the screen where Karen's name flashed. Oh, thank God. Karen breathed out, her shoulders sagging with utter relief. I am too exhausted to fight. Why is that? I know I put one heaven and earth scroll in your bag before the exam started. We didn't realize it until the fourth day, Karen admitted sheepishly. We lost our original scroll, and when I realized I had two in my bag we rushed as fast as we could to the tower, but by then we were already so exhausted from trying to get back our first scroll. We only barely made it in time. Why did you give them two scrolls and not us? Ino asked me, glowering. Because I had faith in your abilities, I honestly answered her. I did not have faith in Karen's teammates. Plus she looked like she could use a little help, and I could never turn down a cutie in distress. Ino's face screwed up, before she smirked and tossed her hair back. I am pretty amazing, and you were absolutely right to have faith in me. Despite your decoys, we still passed. With style and beauty, undoubtedly, I added, giving her a flirtatious wink. Ino giggled and lightly hit on top of my right shoulder. Stop it, you, Ino said, giving me a mock smoldering look and batting her eyelashes. Hinata stared at the exchange before a snort escaped her lips, and then the three of us burst out into laughter, with some of our teammates alternating between chuckling and looking embarrassed by us. Then there were some puffs of smoke, and our senseis had arrived to join us on the balcony. I screamed with happiness before launching myself at Kakashi. Oh my goggle gods, I missed you so much. I figured, Kakashi said, patting my back. A little birdie told me what happened during the forest. Sasuke, when you're finished with your match you'll have to come with me. Sasuke shrugged, and I tried not to happy cry because I was so dang happy to see Kakashi and to hug him again. He pried me off him soon enough, though, because Hayate cleared his throat to gather all of our attention. The first round will be Sabaku Tamari and Nara Shikamaru, Hayate declared. Good luck you Windheim, I called out, making Tamari smirk at me from across the room. Kick his ass. Shikamaru glared sullenly at the floor of the arena. I would be first. If you lose I will wake you up every day at 4 a.m. to go shopping with me, Ino threatened. Shikamaru paled at his determined teammate. I'll help her, I put in. Me, too, Hinata giggled. Shikamaru glared at each of us, before sighing and starting to make his way down to the arena. Tamari taunted him, and Shikamaru ignored her, shooting his tired glares instead. When the match began, Tamari half-heartedly threw wind-style attacks, and Shikamaru dodged them every time. Shikamaru couldn't do anything aside from dodging at the moment, since Tamari kept throwing basic ninjutsu at him. I doubt she took the match all too seriously, to be honest, and why would she? She would be promoted to Chunin regardless of what happened. Then, Shikamaru actually attacked. And by that I mean he threw kunai at some of the overhead lights, immediately making the arena darker. She laughed at his poor aim, and then she froze, and we all knew Shikamaru had the match, then. He knocked her out the same way he knocked out Kin in Canon, and Hayate called the match in his favor. Tamari woke up shortly after, and gave him the most hateful glare she could before marching right back up to her brothers. Good job, you have earned the right to sleep in, I told Shikamaru when he returned. Thank the goggle gods for this mercy, I told him. Okay. Thank the goggle gods, Shikamaru easily agreed. Hayate coughed loudly. Next match will be Sakura Haruno against Dosu from Otogakure. I looked up at Kakashi, my eyes bright. Kakashi-sensei, if I win my match, can I have another hug? Are you going to throw the match if I say no? No, I admitted quietly, cursing myself for my inability to lie about hugs to Kakashi. Then no, I pouted. You can hug me, Hinata and Naruto offered immediately, which made me brighten up and kiss both their cheeks. They both blushed like the cutie patooties they were, and feeling energized I decided to leap down into the arena. I took a bow. Hello, person who will lose. Dosu sneered at me, and Hayate called for the match to begin. Dosu immediately leapt towards me and I danced away from him. With a snarl, he threw himself at me again, and again I leapt away. The third time he tried to catch me, I leapt away and held out my hand in a gesture of pause. Dosu eyed me warily, as I relaxed my battle stance, smiling widely. Hey, you know this place used to double as a training ground for Anbu. Your point. Dosu drawled out. I thought it would be fun to leave little gifts for the Anbu, I explained. Bye-bye. I remotely triggered 2 of the explosive tags Hinata and I had buried into the arena. Those said tags happened to be underneath the spot I had corralled Dosu into. The explosion was immediate, bright, and beautiful. The genin had no time to react, and endured the entire brunt of the explosion. He soared high up into the air, hit the ceiling and crashed back down like a ragdoll. The winner was obvious when he didn't move again. I took a bow as Hayate called the match in my favor before heading back up to my friends. Shouldn't that count as cheating? Karen asked hesitantly when I returned. I'm a kunoichi, though, I said as if it explained everything. In my mind, it did. Good job, Sakura-chan, Naruto cheered happily. Very quick, Hinata praised. Lapping up their praise, I then turned my hopeful gaze towards Kakashi. Well done, Kakashi praised. I squealed. Praise whore. To be frank, most of the matches went on like that, quick, and entirely not dramatic, and a little boring. I mean, not to be mean or anything, but most of us didn't really have some kick-ass arsenal up our sleeves. We were genin. Besides, only one match would have any level of killing intent involved, so there really was no reason to pay super close attention to all of them. Instead, I preferred to talk with my friends, and try to include Karen in as many conversations as humanly possible. Ino quickly got the hint that I wanted to include Karen, so she began to actively ask her questions and whatnot, which got Naruto all excited about having a cousin again, so he asked her loads of stuff about the Uzumaki clan. The third match was Kiba against Shoji, with the Inuzuka barely winning. Next was Gaara facing Zaku, with Gaara turning the fella into a blood smear on the floor. Of course, cheered for Gaara and called Shukaku-sama a cutie patootie, which earned me a small nod from Gaara. The fifth match was actually the only dramatic match during the preliminaries. It was Hinata against Neji. When Hinata saw the match up, her back straightened and she took a deep breath. I rubbed her back. I love and support you. Naruto, tell her you love and support her. I like you a lot, and I support you, Naruto added, rubbing her back with me. Hinata started squeaking, her face red. I like you, too, and I support you, Ino chimed in, patting Hinata's head. You know I like and support you, too, Kiba said, patting Hinata's shoulder. Shino patted Hinata's opposite shoulder. I like you, as well. Why? Because you are a good person. And I support you. Why? Because you are my friend. Every yon. Hinata half squeaked half wailed as tears filled her eyes and she buried her face in her hands. I don't know you very well, but you seem like a nice person, so you have my support, too, Karen hesitantly put in, patting Hinata's arm. Hyuga-san, Hayate inquired politely. Hinata took another deep breath, her face still as red as Kushina's hair, and wobbly made her way down. Are you prepared to meet your destiny, Hinata Haim? Neji spat. Today you will lose, as the weakling you are. Hinata began, then took a deep breath and smooshed her cheeks together. I am not weak. Begin. He lunged at her with every ounce of hatred he had. Their punches and kicks were a blur as they rapidly engaged in a terse battle of taijutsu. Neji definitely landed more blows than Hinata, but Hinata had grazed him successfully more than once. Neji was slowly forcing Hinata back, and after another minute of fighting, Hinata had to leap away, her breaths ragged. Her right arm dangled listlessly at her side, and I noticed that Neji's own left arm was twitching. She must have grazed one of his tenketsus. Not enough to entirely limit his mobility, but enough to make it difficult to utilize. Atta girl. Then Hinata smiled at Neji, and said, now I know why the goggle gods told Sakura-chan to have me practice that for so long. Neji's glare never wavered, until Hinata's chakra flexed and her once useless arm jabbed out and she clenched her right hand into a fist. Neji's face transformed into shock, before utter frustration took a hold in his eyes. How? This is a battle that we should have had a long time ago, Hinata said softly. I'm sorry that only now I am able to face you. It doesn't matter, Neji snapped. You will lose today because that is your destiny. Our destinies are greater than a simple exam, Hinata told him. Our destinies are whatever we can reach for. I know you can do better than worry about a silly test. You are so much better than that Neji-Nisan. Hinata paused and smooshed her cheeks together. I am wetter than that. My heart melted then and there, I swear. Shut up, Neji snarled, throwing himself at Hinata with renewed strength. His blows were brutal and the sounds of chakra slapping against chakra echoed throughout the arena. He forced Hinata step back, after step. No, wait, he's not forcing her back. She's guiding him somewhere. She's guiding. Then Hinata jumped high up into the air and landed a little ways from Neji, relaxing her posture. Neji's face contorted when he realized her posture, and he shifted his stance, preparing to leap at her again. Neji-Nisan, Hinata said softly, a spark in her eyes, fair warning, but, I helped Sakura-chan plant the explosions. Neji's eyes widened comically as Hinata remotely detonated another explosion. Neji had a greater reaction time than Dosu, though he understood Hinata's warning as soon as she said helped Sakura-chan, and was already on the move. Unfortunately for him, the explosion was simply too great to entirely avoid. The force knocked him off his path and he soared through the air uncontrollably. Hinata took that chance and leapt at him as soon as he landed, disabling the rest of the tenketsu in his arms. She kneeled beside him, smiling softly and warmly. You did wonderfully, Neji-Nisan. I am proud to be your sea cousin, and I truly am sorry for all the horrors you had to endure throughout the years. You may not believe me, yet, but I hope in time you will. I swear, Neji Nisan, as I have won today, I will win against all those out-of-date traditions in the Hyuga family. I will change it for the best. Neji continued to glare at the shining Kunoichi stonily, refusing to say a word. Hinata's smile took on a sadder turn, and she reached out and patted his cheek. I will gladly take on your hatred now, Neji Nisan, if that's what it takes. I'm sorry I was not strong enough before. His glare faltered for a moment, and the wounded child looked away from the bright princess. Hinata looked up at the proctor. He will have to be taken to the urgency care to treat his injuries. May I go with him? Hayate nodded. Yes. You have my permission. When the stretcher took Neji away, Hinata followed after him, the warmth never leaving her smile as she looked after him. Hail the therapy no jutsu via Hina-chan. Hinata's a badass, Naruto exclaimed. I nodded my head. Yep. That's my girl. The next match was Naruto against Shino, and I think we all know how utterly unfair that was for Shino. Naruto won, then it was time for Sasuke's match. The Uchiha was still fairly groggy, but luckily for him he was against Ino who was reluctant to really harm him. That being said, she did honestly try. She knew she wouldn't stand a chance in taijutsu, so she threw kunai after kunai at him, with some bombs added in occasionally. She made him keep his distance for a while, but unfortunately for her that wasn't enough to defeat the determined boy with duck-ass hair. Sasuke won his match, and then was ushered away by Kakashi and several other jonin. Ino pouted at losing, but took it fairly well. Next match was Kankuro against Lee, and that one was actually rather funny after Lee demolished Kankuro's puppet with one kick thinking it was Kankuro. The puppet master forfeited immediately afterwards, which left Lee a little disappointed. Lastly, was Kin against Tenten, and that fight was much more evenly matched than the other ones had been, with Tenten scoring a solid victory with a few scrapes and bruises. Kakashi came back about halfway through that match and accepted my hug without much resistance, while I continued to talk with those around me. Our latest talk had devolved into an argument over what was the greatest movie of all time, with the Yuki Haim movies being pitted against some weird dragon movie that had absolutely no romance in it whatsoever. Then again, neither did Yuki Haim movies, but at least she had a nice butt to admire during the entire movie. When the last preliminary was over, Hayate called for our attention back up on the screen. Round 1. Hinata Hyuga vs Shikamaru Nara. Round 2. Sakura Haruno vs Tenten. Round 3. Naruto Uzumaki vs Kiba Inuzuka. Round 4. Karen Uzumaki vs Lee Rock. Round 5. Uchiha Sasuke vs Gaara. Round 6. Winner of Round 1 vs Winner of Round 2. Round 7. Winner of Round 3 vs Winner of Round 4. Round 8. A free for all of the winners of Round 5, 6, and 7. The final part of the exam will be held in 1 month, tournament style. The screen shows who you will be facing for your first match. Further information will be provided by your senseis within a week. Dismissed. I leapt towards Kakashi, throwing my arms around him and burying my face in his side. I felt him sigh, then proceed to ignore me as he addressed Naruto. We'll meet up tomorrow around noon, same training ground. Grats on all of you making this far. Will you give me private lessons, Kakashi-sensei? I pleaded, batting my eyes at him. I promise I'll be a good girl. Unless you would rather I be a bad. Bye, Kakashi said abruptly before substituting himself with Naruto and disappearing in a puff of smoke. I sighed as I began to absently stroke Naruto's fluffy hair. Naruto immediately draped an arm around my waist and started to pet my own hair. Well, I began, then cleared my throat. All beautiful people look my way, please. Ino's head turned towards me, along with Kiba. I said all beautiful people. Shikamaru, Choji, Karen, Shino, turn your heads my way. After they complied, I beamed. Let's have a party at my place right now. To celebrate surviving the exams so far. That doesn't seem like much of an accomplishment to celebrate, Kiba said dubiously. I pointedly look at the blood stain that was all that was left of Gaara's opponent. I'm okay to party, Ino declared. Shikamaru, Choji, you two better come along or else. But, Shikamaru began, but was cut off from Ino's fiery look. Can we have pizza? Naruto asked. Of course, dear, I said. In fact, why don't you go invite Hina-chan for me, and I'll go get the party set up. Everyone be there in an hour, or face my wrath. Muahaha. Okay. Naruto agreed, releasing me and hurrying off. Ino smiled at me. Will it turn into a sleepover? I winked at her. You can sleep with me any time you want, honey. Karen began hesitantly. I'm really flattered, but I have to stay with my team. Since we don't live in Konoha, we have a curfew while we stay here during the exam. Boo. Fine. Let's hang out some other time, then. Naruto declared. Everyone, meet up at my place in 2 hours. A few hours later and the party had started off. We decided to change into pajamas because Ino made a rule that I couldn't pants people if they wore pajamas, so everyone rapidly went back home to grab pajamas. They would be back shortly, though, and while I waited for them I did a few yoga stretches in my bedroom. Because when they did return, I would initiate a rousing game of killer. One person plays the serial killer and everyone else has to run away and not get caught by the killer. No one attack the killer, but the killer can manhandle everyone else. Basically like tag and hide and go seek, but with serial killers and victims. Special rules could be added to the mix, such as the killer can place Y traps, and only certain victims are able to disarm them, etc. Or light can weaken the killer. During one of my poses, I paused, though, because someone special grabbed my attention. I felt him before I saw him. As soon as I felt his presence, I threw open my window and halfway hung out of it in excitement. Kakashi-sensei. Kakashi, who was crouching vertically on the wall beside my window, gave me an eye smile and small wave. Evening, Sakura-chan. Are you here for the party? I asked him, twisting my body around so I sat on the windowsill with my back facing outwards. I stretched my arms out to him, in hopes he might accept my hug despite the fact that I had already used up my allotted physical contact of the day. Do you have a moment to talk? Kakashi asked instead. Always for you. I smiled once more before leaning forward. My arms around his neck and he immediately picked me up before leaping off my house and taking us to the rooftop of the nearest tall building. Once there, he released me and I plopped onto the concrete roof, tying my fluffy pink robe tighter. My back was pressed up against the small stone fence that surrounded the roof, and Kakashi took a seat beside me, his legs stretched out. Entirely unabashed, I leaned into him. He shoved me off. I leaned into him again. He shoved me off, again. I leaned back into him. He gave a sigh. What did you wanna talk about? I asked him, my right hand slowly inching towards his left hand that was in his lap. Do you know someone by the name of Obito Uchiha? Of course, I told him, nodding my head. He's a fellow disciple of the Goggle Gods. When the time has come, and I proved myself worthy, he shall descend from the rosy moon and share with me the rainbow stick story. Kakashi turned his head and for the first time I saw a look of genuine disbelief on his face. What? It's true, I told him. The Goggle Gods whispered it to me in a dream. That's how you know him. You dreamed about him. Yeah, I confirmed. I've dreamed about you, too. The Goggle Gods granted me enlightenment through Kishimoto Ue. You dreamed about me. I nodded. Of course. He shook his head, looking up at the stars. Why do I feel like you honestly believe this? I would never lie about the Goggle Gods, I answered. And I would never lie to you, Kakashi-sensei. Really. About important stuff, I amended. I would totally lie to you if it gave me the opportunity to steal your shirts and pants, or for a fantastic prank. Thanks for the warning, he muttered dryly. I gently took his hand, giving it a firm squeeze before releasing it and placing both my hands in my lap. Is that all you wanted to ask about? He was quiet for a couple of minutes before he gave another sigh and said, yes. Okay. I gave his arm a quick kiss, since it was the only thing at my eye level and I doubt he would be okay if I kissed his cheek before I stood up and stretched. I brushed off the bits of dirt that had gotten onto my robe. You're welcome to come to the party with me. I'll have to decline. For now, I allowed, then I smiled at him as brightly and warmly as I could. I love you, Kakashi-sensei. I sincerely hope you have a good night. You can't say that so easily, Kakashi told me, finally looking away from the sky and back at me. You take that word too lightly. No, I don't, I disagreed, frowning at him. I say I love you because I do. I've seen you for who you are, Kakashi-sensei, and I love what I've seen. Even if you return to a rule-obsessed angsty little preteen, I'll still love ya. I'll still be by your side, and I'll support you however I can. He stared at me, then stood up, clearly getting ready to leave. I don't love you the same way I love Naruto, I clarified for him. Be prepared to be pursued heavily when I'm old enough. What the hell do you call this, then? Harmless teasing, I said with a saucy wink. He made a funny frustrated noise, then disappeared in a puff. I gave a woeful sigh. Well, if it doesn't work out, I'll have to find a way for Kisame-sama to agree to be my backup plan, or better yet, live it out harem style. 31 days until the tournament. I woke up in between two warm bodies and I gave a blissful sigh. The girl on my left gave a mumble, while the girl on the right curled closer. My eyes slowly opened, and I looked over to find Ino body hugging a giant fluffy cat pillow on my left, her back pressed against me and only the top of her head peeking out from under the covers. On my right was Hinata, using my stomach as a pillow and curled up into a tight little ball of cuteness. I relished the moment. Waking up surrounded by awesome and adorable people is how every morning should start, I thought decidedly. There was a snort, and a sigh, and I looked up to find a curled up Naruto hugging his pillow and snoring lightly. I knew Shikamaru was likely on the opposite side of him, with Choji right beside him, relishing being able to sleep in. The poor Nara would never be allowed to sleep in as late as he wanted if he stayed at home, which was likely why he all too easily agreed to stay over, and encouraged Ino's idea of a sleepover. I knew Kiba and Shino were sleeping somewhere nearby, but I couldn't see them with my current angle since I was still on the floor being cuddled by two of my dearest friends. Sometime around 3 last night, everyone realized how late it was and how tired they were. Ka-chan had stayed up with all of us, creating snack after snack, followed by some cake and brownies, and all sorts of sugary goodness that I would never be allowed to eat so much of in one night if it weren't for having a party. She insisted that all of us stayed over for the night after Ino mentioned a slumber party, and proceeded to grab a plethora of blankets and pillows, more than I even knew we had. We all moved the furniture in the living room around to give us some space, before we laid everything out and tried to fall asleep. Obviously we didn't fall asleep until, 5, but still. The smell of bacon had been what originally woke me up, and I knew the others would be waking up, too. No one could resist Ka-chan's bacon with pancake batter poured over them and cooked to a perfect golden brown. No one. There was a quiet bark, and I heard some moans slowly fill the room. Ino mumbled and I felt her stretch beside me, tugging on some of the blankets we shared. Hinata sat up slowly, rubbing the sleep out of her eyes and yawning widely. Good morning, beautiful ladies, I greeted, sitting up and hugging Hinata. The princess mumbled a soft reply, groggily hugging me in return. Ino sat up by that point, and leaned heavily on me. I smell bacon, Naruto whispered, sitting up and rubbing his face. You would be correct, Ka-chan called out from the kitchen. Bacon, pancakes, eggs, hash browns, toast, I've got breakfast ready for everyone. Praise be to breakfast, I heard Choji declare. Like one mob of groggy preteens, we got out of our sleeping mats, bags, and nest of blankets and congregated into the kitchen to help ourselves to the buffet-style breakfast Ka-chan had set up. Once we had all grabbed food, we gathered on the floor of the living room and ate, quietly talking with one another as we still woke up. Kiba took a long swig of orange juice before he grimaced. Last night was crazy. I can't believe how intense that game of killer got. I take everything up to an 11, I said. Every night is wild with me. I believe it, Kiba agreed, shoving a pancake in his mouth. Intense. Watch that mouth of yours, Ino immediately scolded. Don't use that foul-ass language in the presence of a lady. She then giggled at her irony, which made Hinata and me giggle, too. Naruto, who was sitting on the opposite side of me, reached over to grab some of my bacon and I immediately swatted his hand away. He grabbed some more anyway. I gave an offended noise, and Hinata immediately placed some bacon on my plate, and I gave her a bright smile in return. What time is it, anyway? Naruto asked, eating my bacon. Ka-chan poured me another glass of strawberry milk. Almost noon. Ah, we have to go meet with Kakashi-sensei, I remembered. Naruto moaned. He'll probably be late anyway. Even if he isn't, bastard deserves to wait on us for a change. I don't want to keep him waiting, I fretted. Ino reached behind Hinata and patted my shoulder. Sakura-chan, think of it this way. He'll have to think about you while he waits for you. Don't you want him thinking about you? Ooh, you make an excellent point. I then nodded. Very well, we'll eat then go meet up with everyone. Woo, Naruto cheered. We met up with Kakashi about an hour later, and I hug-tackled him per usual. I was surprised that Sasuke wasn't there, but then when I thought about it, it wasn't all that surprising. Kakashi pried me off him. I have a sensei scheduled to meet with you both and help you train for the tournament. I will be taking Sasuke away for private lessons. Naruto glared. What the hell? Why does he get special lessons while you pawn off on someone else? I'm the only one who can teach him to use the Sharingan, Kakashi began. In addition, you both know about the curse mark, so you should understand why it's important for him to be isolated. I whined. Kakashi-sensei, I can't go a whole month without you, though. That's too cruel. Sakura-chan, Kakashi said, his tone firm, but taking a gentler tone, you can't come with us, and I need you to not try and find us through your sensing ability. I have no doubt that if you put your mind to it, you could track us down, but the entire point of us leaving is to avoid contact with others. Not only for Sasuke's sake, but yours, as well. An entire month without Kakashi would suck, but given that it was during the exams, it was fine by me. I understood very well why it was important for Sasuke to stay away from others while the seal had time to mature and properly prevent Sasuke's curse mark from spreading. If Sasuke were to completely lose control, Kakashi might have to repress him, and I was certain he wouldn't want either of us to see that happen. In addition, the Jiraiya would be coming into the village and I was beyond stoked to finally meet, hug, and fangirl over him. So, yes, I could deal with Kakashi running off for a month even if it would be one of the longest months of my life, and that was counting during my first life when my mother took me off her trial medication to see what kind of symptoms of withdrawal I experienced. But I couldn't resist the potential bribery practically begging me to take advantage of. As a haggler of life, I took it upon myself to make the most out of every opportunity given to me. It would be utterly shameful of me to ignore such an easy situation. I gave him a wide-eyed puppy dog look. But, Kakashi-sensei, oh, fine, but only if you give me a kiss on the cheek when you return. I won't accept anything less. I knew that was probably never going to happen, but I had to highball now with a kiss on the cheek in order to get the perfectly reasonable 2 hugs when he returned. Fine, Kakashi agreed, now that that's settled. I gasped, my heart soaring. Ebisu will be arriving here shortly. Behave. No butt grabs. Don't try to look for us. Bye. Then he was gone, and I never felt more happy in my entire life. Sakura-chan, your face is a little red, are you okay? I chose not to stick around to meet Ebisu. I had nothing against the man, of course, but I knew he would only want to enhance the basics, and I was already doing that on my own. I needed someone who could actually help me in the upcoming tournament. That, and I didn't want to chance ruining Naruto's meeting with his godfather. So, off to the library I went in search of ninjutsu I could learn and use for my upcoming fight with Tenten. The librarian greeted me with a warm, tired smile, instantly recognizing me. I returned a few of the medical texts I had finished thoroughly memorizing before inquiring where I could find ninjutsu scrolls for genin rank or below. Elemental jutsus were forbidden from academy students, but some were allowed to be checked out for genin. My nature was Earth. Doden, which was fan-friggin-tastic since I was going for a poison support Irio medical thing. Ideally I could hide behind some bomb-ass walls while peppering the battlefield with poisons and waiting for them to take effect. At least that was the end goal I had in mind for my offense. I searched the library for any form of wall-like jutsu I could use, and after an hour of searching I found what I was looking for. I checked out the scroll, and headed to our usual training grounds. I wasn't too surprised that Naruto and Ebisu were no longer there. Likely Ebisu wanted Naruto to perfect water walking, which wasn't a bad idea, since Naruto and Sasuke both still struggled to fight while water walking at the same time, and took him to the hot springs. After looking over the instructions for the jutsu several times, I began the process of learning to draw upon my elemental chakra. I had plenty of experience of manipulating elemental chakra, since I had to purge it from my own chakra before I could use Shozen. It was simple enough to focus on it exclusively. Of course that didn't mean I mastered the technique instantly, or with a lot of ease. It was something new, and a lot of ninjutsus worked like muscle memory, with your chakra acting as a muscle. It took time and a lot of practice before your body and your chakra could create the technique without much thought. Not to mention that while I had been steadily increasing my reserves, they were still below average for genin. My civilian background prevented me from having the genetic advantage like many of my friends, and consequentially I had to work twice as hard to have an average amount of chakra. On the bright side, thanks to my amazing chakra control, I could utilize what little I had for maximum impact. I worked on jutsu throughout the day and well into the night. I decided that I would work on it for a few more days before I checked on Naruto, and hopefully meet Jiraiya. 29 days until the tournament. I knocked on Naruto's door well before sunrise, one breakfast for 5 courtesy of Ka-chan in hand. There was a minute of silence before the door opened and a groggy Naruto stood before me. He beamed as soon as he saw me and hug-tackled me. Sakura-chan. Good morning, my son, I greeted him, kissing his cheek. How has your training been? It's okay, Naruto said, pulling away from me and ushering me inside. I'm actually training with this huge pervert now. He reminds me a lot of you, actually, except nowhere near as fun and cuddly. Ah, you say the sweetest things, I cooed, holding up the giant bento box. Ka-chan made us breakfast. How's about ya introduce me to your new sensei today? Naruto agreed immediately, all too happily accepting the bento box and beginning to eat 3 out of the 5 meals, while I ate the other 2. Hey, Shinobi Kunoichi metabolisms combined with puberty was nothing short of demanding. Akamichi literally had to be constantly eating extremely fatty foods in order to gain weight, and keep a decent amount of fat in their system. We ate our breakfast, and Naruto put on a pot of tea for us. Once we were satisfied, he went about getting ready for the day, and by about 800 we headed off to meet Jiraiya. It was a bit of walk to get to the secluded forest on the outskirts of Konoha, but it was enjoyable since Naruto had plenty to talk about. When we arrived, Jiraiya was already there, sitting on a tree stump with his arms folded across his chest. I squealed upon seeing him, causing him to jump, and then I threw myself at him with my arms outstretched. Jiraiya-sama. Whoa, this is a first, Jiraiya said, accepting my hug tackle, and patting the top of my head. Who's the cutie? This is my best friend Sakura-chan, Naruto explained. She wanted to meet you. I love you, I told Jiraiya. I am a huge fan of yours. I haven't read your Ika Ika yet, but I want you to know that I am another mega super pervert in the making. Really? Jiraiya chuckled. It's true, Naruto said, she has her own harem. Really? Also, I have a big of a favor to ask you, I began, blushing in embarrassment. I'm not allowed to leave the village over personal missions since I'm a genin, and the goggle gods told me you would be heading towards that direction when you looked for Boozy Princess. What? Jiraiya deadpanned. Naruto frowned. What did the goggle gods tell you now? I need the salamander summons, I explained, pulling out a small map I had drawn and giving it to Jiraiya. The goggle gods told me that Hanzo-sama disowned his salamanders during a fit of paranoia and hid them away here. What? Jiraiya repeated. When you rescue the Boozy Princess, I continued, nonplussed, you'll pass by where he put the scroll. If you could bring that back to me, I can make it worth your while. Jiraiya squinted at me. You make absolutely no sense. For starters, why would I agree to this? I smiled at him. I'm the greatest wingman you will ever encounter. You will never be without research with me around. Naruto shook his head. She's not someone you doubt, pervy sage. Let me prove it to you, I offered. I'll come back here around 7 tonight, and I'll treat you to a night out. If, for some odd reason, you don't get a swarm of women around you or have the time of your life, then I'll buy you lunch every day until the exams are over. If I do fulfill my end of the bargain, though, you bring me the salamanders. You're a box full of crazy, aren't you? And fun. Okay. If I get bored an hour in, though, I'm taking my food and leaving. You have yourself a deal. 3 a.m. the following morning. So do we have ourselves a deal? I asked Jiraiya, looking down at him while he was being hand-fed and doted upon by 3 beautiful darlings who cooed at him. He looked up at me, a little drunk, but with a wide smile on his face. Sakura, you and I are going to get along great. I know. Praise be to the goggle gods. Praise be to the goggle gods. 25 days until the tournament. I sat beside Hinata while she worked on her calligraphy, filling her in on what Naruto was doing for training. Today she was resting from the intense training her father was putting her through in preparation for facing Temari. Naruto-kun is amazing, Hinata declared when I had finished. To be trained by a Sannin, no less. He must be so strong. Jiraiya-sama is the super-powered male version of me, I told her. Jiraiya-sama must be wonderful, Hinata decided, setting down her brush and turning to face me fully. How is your training going, Sakura-chan? Pretty well. I've got a sturdy wall, but not sure if it'll hold up under Tenten's attack. How about you? Well, Hinata said with a bright smile. It is a poor matchup for me, since my style is taijutsu dominant and that would make it exceedingly easy for Shikamaru to capture me with his technique, but father has a plan and we've been working on it for a while. I felt genuinely happy to see Hinata look so at ease, confident, and sincerely happy. She was nothing like she was just a handful of months ago, and the fact that I was part of the reason for that change warmed me like a gentle fire on a cold day. Excuse me, Hiyashi said, as he opened the door to Hinata's room. He gave me a terse nod, and a thin smile to Hinata. Will you be accompanying us for lunch and a spar, Sakura? I never say no to free food. 17 days until the tournament. I gave Karen's hand a squeeze as I guided her through Konoha and gave her the grand tour. We hadn't been able to meet up much, as her instructor didn't want her wandering off without supervision, especially since she was the only one from their village to make it to the finals, which made her all levels of nervous. It took much needling on my part before her instructor would allow her to walk around the village with me. Karen took every sight in with bright eyes. There were a few times she felt anxious. Since Konoha was so big in comparison to Kusa, she wasn't used to large crowds of people, but when that happened we always took a break. I met up with Hinata and Ino with Karen, and the four of us spent part of the day touring Konoha, and the other half of the day doing mock spars. When it was time to return Karen due to her curfew, we left the young Uzumaki feeling happy and hopeful. I sincerely hope she would stay in touch in the years to follow, and that I did enough to keep her happy when, if she left with Orochimaru. 10 days until the tournament. I slept in a bit that day, only getting up when Ka-chan came up to wake me up with kisses and tickles. I decided to spend the day recovering, since I had been working non-stop on my plan against Tenten. I figured the invasion would probably still happen around the same time as Kanon, during Sasuke's and Gaara's match, and there wouldn't be much point preparing to fight Hina-chan. I had absolute faith in her ability to defeat Shikamaru. Even if, for some reason, I did fight her, I would likely forfeit. Winning was way more important to her than it was to me. Ika was nice, but making Hinata smile was priceless. I had picked up one other ninjutsu to learn from my fight with Tenten, and I found it was pretty easy to get the hang of. It didn't require nearly as much chakra as creating thick walls. Ka-chan patted my hair, and motioned for me to sit with her on the couch. What are your plans today, Sa-chan? More training. I'm going to rest today, I told her. I need to figure out how to make one of the poisons I wanna use. It's a fast-acting sedative that the enemy only has to breathe in. Like a sleeping gas. Yeah, I'm not very good at chemistry, though. Ka-chan tuttered. I don't believe that for a second. Cooking is chemistry, you know. Cooking is a different kind of chemistry than making poisons. I bet not, Ka-chan declared. Tell you what, why don't I help you with it today? I bet I could show you a thing or two. You may be good in the kitchen, but you still have a lot to learn, little Sa-chan. Rolling my eyes, I kissed her cheek. I know. But, hey, if you wanna help I won't say no. Ka-chan beamed. And what do you know? Ka-chan could make poisons. Guess it wasn't too different from cooking, after all. Day of the tournament. On the day of the tournament, I woke up to a glorious breakfast and Ka-chan and Tu-chan doting on me. The sheer pride rolling off the two of them made my tummy flip-flop pleasantly, and my chest feel warm with their love. The three of us walked to the tournament together, before I had to go. Bye-bye, I told them, kissing each of their cheeks. We're so proud of you, Sa-chan, Ka-chan told me, kissing my forehead. Kick some ass for us, okay. Tu-chan ruffled my hair and kissed the top of my head. I will, I promised them. They went off to find their seats, and I went off the competitor balcony where Naruto and Hinata were already waiting for me. Shikamaru arrived shortly afterwards, followed by Karen, then Tenten and Lee. Gaara came next, and I greeted him with a cheerful wave and introducing him to my precious people. Kiba was the last to arrive, and he was as boisterous as he could be. We talked quietly with one another until Genma called for the exam to begin. He launched into a speech to get the crowd going, and Naruto asked me quietly, "Sense Kakashi-sensei and the bastard?" I shook my head. No. They'll come, though, don't worry. It'll just be fashionably late. Naruto snorted at that. Genma's voice carried over our conversation. Our first match today will be against two of our very own. The Hyuga heiress, Hinata, and the Nara heir, Shikamaru. There was some excited cheering, while said people began to head down. "Kick his ass, Hina-chan," I screamed out at her. "I like you both and support you both," Naruto shouted. "Hina-chan is way cuter." Shikamaru sighed. "We have loud friends." Hinata giggled before she bowed graciously to Shikamaru. "Good luck, Shikamaru-san." "You, too," Shikamaru mumbled. Genma motioned for them to begin, and right away Hinata danced away from Shikamaru's shadows. She maneuvered gracefully away from each of his attacks, fluttering about like a butterfly. There wasn't any bit of hesitation from her, and each of her movements were fluid and confident. Several times she would throw an explosive note towards Shikamaru to keep him on her toes, but for the most part she danced. After many minutes, Shikamaru with his shadows, leaving the princess to stand alone in the center of the arena. Then a smile bloomed across her face and she moved with a speed I had never seen her possess. She crossed the distance between the two in a matter of seconds, twisting her body and shadow just barely out of Shikamaru's reach. Her hands moved and a flash of light filled the entire arena. She used a flash bang. When the light cleared, Hinata was already creating distance again, and Shikamaru's arms dangled uselessly beside him. He gave a low groan. Forfeit. There's no way I could overcome this without serious damage to myself. The crowd roared its approval, and Hinata immediately went over to Shikamaru to unblock his tenketsu. The two of them returned to our balcony, where I hugged Hinata and congratulated her. The next matchup is against two of our aspiring kunoichi. Tenten Higurashi against Sakura Haruno. I swung over the railing and dropped down into the arena, while Tenten followed behind me using the stairs at a much calmer pace. I took a bow towards Tenten, and she amicably returned it with one of her own. She looked up and smiled at me. "Let's both have a good fight, nay." "Yep," I agreed. "May the goggle gods watch over us." Sure. Begin." Right off the bat Tenten threw open one of her scrolls and began to throw a barrage of weapons towards me. Anticipating that, I had already summoned up a decent-sized wall to protect myself from the barrage. Within seconds, I pulled out one of the gas bombs I created and buried it inside the ground. Another few seconds and I leapt away from the wall, just in time for her to toss in a bomb to completely destroy my once safe spot. She noticed me immediately, and began to focus her long-ranged attacks from me, but I was already calling up another wall. By the time I planted another gas bomb, she had destroyed my wall again. Our dance continued for 3 more walls. I was slowly circling her, and now her back was turned to where I had planted my first 2 bombs before she let out a growl of frustration. "Enough. You won't be able to hide or defend from this. So Shoryu." Tenten summoned 2 scrolls from her side and leapt up into the air. I gave a wince, knowing I wouldn't be able to entirely hide behind a wall for her attack. I had to do my best dodging on my own, and what injuries I gathered I would have to heal somehow throughout the match. Using every inch of my reflexes and honed skills, I began to focus entirely on dodging weapon after weapon. They flew with enough force that they dug into the ground with small bits of explosion, obscuring both our views. Many of them still grazed me, though, and I could feel blood drip down my arms and legs. I heard Tenten land on the ground, and I knew that she would soon pull upon the wires and begin her second barrage. I had only a second to react. "Doryuso!" I shouted out, creating the bird seal. My chakra lashed out instantaneously to 3 of the gas bombs I had planted, now behind Tenten. Doryuso was a high C-rank ninjutsu that created small spears from the ground that launched themselves at a target. The range and power behind the spears weren't significant enough to use often in combat, but they could be used underneath the user to give them a boost, or to launch something else. I used them to launch the gas bombs directly at Tenten from behind her. Her head snapped around, but she couldn't fully dodge the 3 poisonous explosions that bombarded her. She gave a gasp, dropping to her knees and clutching at her throat. While she struggled to breathe, it only hurt to breathe in, and wasn't toxic. I called upon my Shozen and healed the worst of my scratches. By the time I had healed up 5 injuries, Tenten had effectively passed out. Genma nodded at her. Winner. Sakura Haruno. The crowd roared and I took a bow. Medics came out to carry Tenten away, and one of them turned to me to inquire about the poison. Sedative. I reassured them, she'll wake up in an hour on her own. When I returned to the other contestants, Hinata and Naruto gave me congratulatory hugs. Great job, Sakura-chan. I knew you could do it. Hey, that was a poison, right? Does that mean you can make your own poisons now? That poison I actually made with my Ka-chan, I told Naruto. Naruto gasped. Your Ka-chan knows everything. I nodded. She's almost as knowledgeable as the Goggle Gods. Wow. Our third match will be Kiba Inuzuka against Naruto Uzumaki, Genma called out. Naruto and Kiba both let out joyful yips and jumped off the balcony in a scramble to reach the center of the arena first. Genma called for it to begin, and Naruto created about 40 clones. Their match was nothing but a slugfest. Not once did Naruto go in himself, but he kept sending clones, after clones to fight Kiba and Akamaru. Unfortunately for the partner duo, there was no real way to tell the difference between the real Naruto and the clones without the Byakugan or making the clones dispel. So while Kiba was fighting hordes of clones and growing increasingly frustrated, Naruto started setting up Y-traps, burying explosive tags, for example, and guiding his enemy to them through the clones. It was rather funny, and a little sad, to watch the entire match. It was completely one-sided and surprisingly cunning of Naruto. One explosion was enough to throw Kiba off his balance for the hordes to dogpile on him and knock him out. Winner. Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto bowed repeatedly towards the cheering crowd before making his way back up towards us and giving me a thumbs up. Kiba had to be carried away in a stretcher. You're my little trapper, aren't you? I cooed, rushing towards him and patting his head. As the king of pranks, I can't have you be the better Y-trapper, he told me seriously. As the queen of pranks, I accept your challenge. He stared at me. This is a war you won't win, Sakura-chan. I won't have mercy on a rival, even if it's you. I winked at him. Honey, you can't handle my level of madness. At dawn tomorrow we go to war, then. To the victor, the spoils. What am I going to do with you two? Hinata sighed, looking at us both endearingly. Love us, we said in perfect unison, then grinned at each other. Our next match will be against Karen Uzumaki, and Lee Rock. All of us turned towards the extremely nervous Karen, and we started to wish her good luck. Lee gave her an encouraging smile. Not to worry, fair maiden. Let's have a good fight. Why yeah, Karen stammered, looking sick. The two headed down to the arena, and Hinata, Naruto, and I moved over to the balcony to watch. Shikamaru joined on the opposite side of Naruto to watch. Begin. My heart skipped a beat when I sensed Kakashi, and Sasuke, I guess. They both appeared in the contestant booth while Karen struggled to keep pace with Lee. Lee could see his opponent was clearly below his level, and he was taking care not to severely injure her. He gave her time to recover between each attack, while throwing in some encouraging words for her to not give up. There was a swirl of leaves and a puff of smoke, and Kakashi and Sasuke appeared behind us. Naruto beamed. Bastard. You made it. Faster than what my eyes could follow. I felt a pressure on my right cheek, and then it was gone and Kakashi was giving me an eye smile. Thanks for leaving us be. I spluttered. Wait. Did you? Oh my god, that does not count. I did not have time to prepare. You didn't specify when, Kakashi told me. Damn my inability to be specific, I cursed myself, then I latched onto him and hugged him as tight as I could. I have 30 hugs to make up for. Kakashi patted my back. Sasuke cleared his throat. So what did we miss? Hinata-chan won her match against Shikamaru, Naruto began, making Hinata blush when he gave her an appraising look. Then Sakura-chan won against Tenten. I, of course, beat Kiba with my awesomeness, and now we're watching Karen fight Bushy Brows. I nuzzled Kakashi's chest, relishing the fact that he wasn't pushing me away. Sasuke looked over at Gaara, who leaned against the wall and watched everyone with half-lidded eyes and barely restrained killing intent. Winner. Lee Rock. Our eyes drifted back towards the arena where Karen was being carried away in a stretcher, entirely unconscious, not actually looking too bad, considering. Lee gave her an apologetic look before he returned to the balcony. Guess I'm next, Sasuke said, hopping over the railing. Gaara was already moving towards the center of the arena, an excited smile on his face. Then it will be me and you, Sakura-chan, Hinata said, smiling warmly at me. Let's both do our best, okay? You're too cute to fight, I protested. But if you really want me to give it my all, you know I could never refuse you. I would appreciate it, Hinata told me. I turned my face back into Kakashi, already knowing exactly how Sasuke and Gaara's fight would go. Fate no Jutsu would strike again, I bet. Kakashi absent-mindedly rubbed my back, and then I felt Naruto inch towards us and I wrapped him to our hug, and the two of us hugged Kakashi with him patting both of our backs. This counts as all 30 hugs, Kakashi told me, if I let you both hug me for another 5 minutes. Deal. Hugs are addictive, Naruto whispered. You guys are really close, Shikamaru commented. Hinata giggled. Isn't it adorable? That's one way of looking at it, I suppose. It's wonderful to see such passion students have for their teachers, Lee declared excitedly. I embrace Guy-sensei as often as I can. Then the piercing scream of Gaara filled the arena, and hell broke loose. You can't make me write out a serious, long fight scene. That shit. And yeah, I decided to do the exams in 3 chapters. You'll see why I had to cut it off right before the invasion in the next chapter. Get your tissues and comfort ready for the next chapter because it's time for that good old angst seasoning. I think I spoiled the 3 optional endings I'm doing for this story if I decide not to pull a now. Whoopsie. Sarah Garcia Donner, DeviantArt, drew the wedding picture of Kakashi and Sakura. Kakashi's expression is priceless. Curly Friar Magheddon, DeviantArt, also drew a chibi fanart of Sakura. Both fanart links on my profile, or you can view them on their DeviantArt accounts. Smiley face. Kakashi. Making my way downtown, walking fast. Sakura. Sensei. Kakashi. Walking faster. I had another episode so I haven't had the time to edit this. Please let me know if you see typos. Reviews or love.